A homeless girl is nearly dragged out of a luxury wedding, until a single recording exposes a shocking betrayal and changes every life in the room forever. Soft light spilled through the tall stained glass windows, painting the marble floors with colors that seemed almost too perfect to be real. Gentle music floated in the air, mingling with whispers of admiration as elegantly dressed guests found their seats. Crystal chandeliers glimmered overhead, reflecting the delicate floral arrangements that lined the aisle. Every detail of this wedding had been meticulously planned. Every fold of fabric, every note of music, every glance meant to impress. At the altar stood the groom. He was a man who had everything: power, wealth, influence. His tailored suit fit perfectly, his smile charming, his eyes calm. Yet behind that calm, there was something else. A quiet tension he refused to show. Today, he was supposed to be happy, to be celebrating the union with a woman the world thought perfect. But perfection is fragile, isn't it? He straightened his posture, glancing toward the entrance. Guests admired the luxury, the harmony, the flawless ceremony. Some envied the bride's life, imagining a future without worry. Others simply marveled at the scale of the event, whispering among themselves about the wealth and status on display. But no one saw the unease behind the groom's eyes. No one noticed the slight hitch in his breath, the small shadow of doubt he carried quietly within. Everything seemed still, almost sacred. The soft music lowered to a delicate murmur, and the priest adjusted his robe. It was the perfect pause of luxury and smiles, the exact moment when anticipation hung like a fragile glass ornament that can shatter it all. Everything looks perfect, but why do I feel something is wrong? He thought, barely audibly. Outside the grand doors, a figure lingered, unseen, underestimated, but carrying something far stronger than jewels or gowns. The quiet tension in the groom's chest was the only clue that not everything was as it should be. The guests were blind to it, lost in admiration and gossip, thinking the day flawless. A single moment separated calm from chaos. One step, one voice, one truth could destroy the image of perfection the world had been sold. And when that moment arrived, it would sweep through the church like a sudden storm, leaving nothing untouched. The groom's eyes held both hope and dread. He had survived a life full of challenges, betrayals, and danger. But this moment, he felt, could be different. Because sometimes, the most dangerous lies are hidden behind smiles, and the most unexpected truths arrive in the quietest footsteps. And in that perfect, polished church, one truth waited just beyond the doors, ready to change everything. The church doors opened with a soft creak, almost hesitant, as if even they sensed the disruption about to enter. A cold draft slipped inside, carrying the faint scent of dust and rain, and with it, a figure that drew every eye. She was small, frail, her clothes torn and soiled, shoes worn down from miles of walking. Her hair hung in uneven strands, and her face was marked by hunger and exhaustion. She did not belong here, not among the silk gowns, polished shoes, and crystal chandeliers. Whispers erupted like sparks in dry grass. Who let her in? Remove her before she ruins everything. Is this some kind of joke? The guests recoiled, their elegance doing nothing to hide their disgust. Some shifted in their seats, clutching pearls or tightening ties. Others covered their mouths, pretending not to stare. A few of the bravest simply turned away, unwilling to confront the raw truth of her presence. And yet, the girl took a step forward. Then another. Each footfall echoed like a heartbeat, breaking the fragile calm of the moment. She did not stumble. She did not cry. Her eyes, wide and unwavering, scanned the room, not with fear, but with purpose. I have to do this. There's no turning back now, she thought, her mind steady even as the world seemed ready to push her away. The groom's gaze caught hers, not because she demanded attention, but because there was a fire in her eyes, something no wealth or power could buy, a truth that refused to be ignored. Security shifted uneasily, hands hovering, ready to enforce the invisible boundaries of class and privilege. The guests felt relief at the thought of the girl being removed, reassured that order could be restored. But she did not flinch. She did not plead. She simply stood, small but unbroken, a stark contrast to the polished perfection around her. Her presence was uncomfortable because it revealed what the rich often tried to forget, that honesty and courage often appear in the most unexpected places, that sometimes those with the least to lose have the most to say. A single breath passed in silence. Then the girl parted her lips, ready to speak. The room held its collective breath. The grand church no longer just a setting of celebration, but a stage for a confrontation no one expected. Because sometimes the person everyone wants to throw out is the one carrying the truth that cannot be ignored. The quiet tension of the church shattered in an instant. Two security guards moved forward with precision, their faces hard and practiced. In a single motion, they gripped the girl's arms, trying to pull her back toward the doors. Her worn shoes scraped against the polished marble floor, a harsh, grating sound that seemed louder than the soft organ music that had just filled the room. "Take her out," one whispered, his voice low, commanding. "This isn't her place," another added, as if stating a fact could make it true. The girl twisted in their grasp, her voice rising, raw and urgent. "Stop! You can't let this wedding happen." Gasps rippled through the guests. Conversations turned into whispers of shock, some rising to murmurs of outrage. Women clutched pearls and fans, men straightened in discomfort, and the camera lenses of journalists clicked rapidly, capturing a moment that no one had expected. Why won't anyone just listen? She thought, the frustration and desperation coiling tight in her chest. The guards tightened their grip, but she did not fall. She lunged, nearly losing her balance, reaching for the cracked phone in her pocket. "Please, just 5 seconds. You need to hear this." Her plea was sharp, slicing through the tension like lightning. The bride's name was never spoken, yet every guest knew who she meant. The implication hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Some guests leaned forward, curiosity sparking through their shock. Others whispered to their neighbors, disbelief etched across their faces. Even the groom's calm expression wavered. He froze, hand halfway raised, caught between instinct and caution. He had seen chaos before, but something about her voice, the urgency, the fear, the courage, made him hesitate. The girl's voice grew louder. "She's lying. She's using him. You have to stop this." Her words echoed against the high ceilings, each syllable landing like a hammer blow against the ornate walls. For a heartbeat, the guards faltered. The perfect ceremony, the polished images of wealth and power, teetered on the edge of collapse. The church, once a place of silent admiration, now vibrated with raw human emotion. Anger, disbelief, courage, and a plea for truth. "If they remove me now, no one will know what I heard," she thought, the weight of her responsibility pressing down like a physical force. The air felt electric. Guests whispered, gasped, and some even began to stand, unsure whether to intervene or watch the unraveling spectacle. All around, the elegance of the event could not mask the truth clawing its way to the surface. Because sometimes the loudest voice is the one that comes from the place no one wants to see, and sometimes the most important story is carried by the one everyone tries to throw out. The soft chaos in the church froze as the groom's eyes caught sight of her, the small, trembling figure struggling against the security guards. The world around him seemed to blur. Gasps, whispers, and shuffling feet faded into a distant hum. All that mattered was her voice, raw and urgent, cutting through the polished elegance of the hall. He straightened, his hand rising slowly. Not to command, not to silence, but to stop. The guards hesitated, unsure, sensing the shift in authority. Guests leaned forward, murmuring nervously, but he did not speak yet. He simply watched. Why am I listening to her when everyone else wants her gone? He wondered, a flicker of curiosity and caution dancing in his chest. Step by careful step, he walked toward her. Each movement commanded attention. The polished floor reflected his black shoes like mirrors, but his focus was unwavering. He ignored the shocked glances of the audience, the whispers of scandal, the judgment that hung in the air like smoke. He was not moving for show. He was moving to hear the truth. The girl's wide eyes met his for a brief moment, confusion and hope flickering across her face. She had expected dismissal, maybe even anger, not this calm and deliberate approach. His presence alone seemed to part the crowd, creating a silent path through the chaos. "Stop!" someone shouted from the pews. "This isn't proper." "Security! Do something!" another cried. But he did not stop. He reached her side and bent slightly, close enough for her to speak but far enough to respect the storm around them. "Tell me," he said softly, his voice carrying over the tension without raising it. "Everything."
"I'm listening."
Her lips trembled, a mixture of fear and relief. Finally, someone is actually hearing me, she thought. The weight she carried for so long, the secrets, the danger, the sleepless nights, felt a fraction lighter. Around them, the room seemed to hold its breath. The bride's poised smile faltered, her carefully constructed mask cracking under the scrutiny. Guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, sensing that the course of the day had changed. The groom's choice to listen, rather than turn away, had shifted the balance entirely. He took another slow breath, steadying himself. The power he held in that moment was not in wealth, in influence, or in fear, it was in attention. In choosing to seek truth instead of convenience. If I ignore her, everything falls apart, he thought, his mind weighing instinct against intuition. And in that choice, the seeds of justice, clarity, and revelation were planted. One man's decision to hear what no one else would could change the course of the entire wedding, and perhaps even more than that, the course of a life. The church fell into an uneasy silence as the girl fumbled with her cracked phone, fingers trembling against its worn edges. Every eye was on her. The guest's shock, the bride's disbelief, the guard's uncertainty. For a moment, it seemed impossible that such a small device could carry a revelation powerful enough to shake this perfect world. "Please, just 5 seconds," she pleaded, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Just listen. You have to hear this." The groom leaned closer, his expression calm but alert. Could it really be true? Could this fragile girl hold the key to everything I trusted blindly? She pressed play. The faint buzz of static preceded the bride's voice, unmistakable, dripping with cruelty and calculation. Words meant to be private now filled the grand church. Laughter mocking the groom, schemes of betrayal, and a cold, meticulous plan to steal his wealth and trust. Gasps echoed from the pews. Some guests clutched their pearls, some pressed hands to mouths, and others froze, unable to comprehend the audacity captured in such a tiny recording. The bride's perfectly controlled smile wavered, then cracked, revealing panic underneath. How could she? After everything. After all this? The groom thought, disbelief mixing with a sharp edge of hurt. The girl's voice rose just enough to guide attention to the truth. "See? She never loved him. She only wanted his fortune." Every word. "Listen." The audio played again, this time clearer, leaving no room for doubt. The church no longer felt like a sacred hall of celebration. It was a courtroom, and this small phone had become the witness no one expected. Every whispered plot, every hidden intention, now echoed openly, unmasked. Security guards froze, unsure whether to intervene or step back. The guests, who moments ago had looked down on her as an intruder, now stared in awe and fear at the courage it had taken to reveal such a truth. Even the groom, a man used to power and control, felt a shiver of vulnerability. Why had she risked everything to expose this? Because someone had to stand when no one else would, she thought, her chest rising and falling with quiet determination. The bride tried to speak, to defend herself, but the audio lingered in the room like a verdict written in stone. The lies, the greed, the deception. It could no longer hide behind silk gowns and smiles. For the first time, the power shifted. The fragile, overlooked girl had become the voice of justice, the one who stopped a celebration built on lies. The truth was no longer optional. It demanded to be seen, heard, and acknowledged. And in that moment, the room understood something important. Courage does not come from wealth, influence, or status. It comes from the willingness to speak the truth, even when the world wants you silent. The church was silent, every eye fixed on the small phone in the girl's hands. The faint hum of the recording filled the vast hall, and with each word, the perfect image of the bride began to crumble. The soft music that had once decorated the moment of joy was gone, replaced by the cold, unyielding sound of truth. Gasps spread like wildfire. Guests clutched their pearls, their hands trembling. Some leaned forward, unable to believe their ears. Others turned pale, as if the voice from the phone had reached into their very understanding of the world and upended it. The bride's confident smile had vanished. Her carefully crafted composure shattered in an instant. The words played over again, unmasking greed, lies, and manipulation. Each sentence carved away at the fantasy everyone had admired. A marriage of luxury, beauty, and power. How could she have done this? How could she betray me so completely? The groom thought, a mixture of shock, anger, and betrayal flashing across his face. The girl stood steady, unwavering. She did not need to shout. The truth itself demanded attention. Even the guests who had dismissed her moments ago now watched in silent awe, recognizing the courage it took to hold this moment, to play this recording in front of those who had always believed wealth could hide anything. Whispers erupted, then grew into murmurs of disbelief. "I can't believe it," one guest murmured. Another shook her head, voice trembling. "She planned everything. How could we not have seen it?" The groom finally spoke, his voice calm but resolute. This ends now." He gestured to the bride, who now clutched her hands, speechless, powerless. Every lie the bride had carefully hidden for months, perhaps years, was exposed in seconds. The church, once a stage for celebration, had become a courtroom. And the girl, the one no one wanted inside, was the unexpected judge. Why do the smallest voices often carry the heaviest truth? They risked nothing before. Now I see who truly matters, the girl thought, her gaze unwavering as the groom stepped forward, acknowledging her courage. The truth echoed in every corner, in every shocked gasp, and in the wide, disbelieving eyes of the guests. The lies could not hide behind diamonds or silk any longer. Power, privilege, and beauty had been exposed for what they were, masks for deceit. And in that moment, the church held a lesson for everyone present, one that no wealth or influence could ever silence. The groom's hand rose slowly, silencing the murmurs that had begun to swell like a storm. His voice, calm but firm, cut through the tension. "This wedding is over." Shock rippled through the room. The bride's eyes widened, her carefully painted face now a mask of panic. She opened her mouth, perhaps to protest, to lie, to reclaim the perfect image she had built, but no words came. The truth had already struck deeper than any defense could reach. Guests shifted in their seats, some gasping, others whispering among themselves. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment when wealth, beauty, and pretense collided with honesty and courage. The luxurious setting suddenly felt fragile, as if every golden detail could shatter under the weight of deceit. The bride's lawyer pushed toward the exit, briefcase in hand, muttering excuses and dragging papers as though the chaos could be contained by filing them away. Security tried to intervene, but it was too late. The world they had curated so meticulously was crumbling before their eyes. How could she think she could fool everyone? The groom thought, a mixture of disbelief and quiet resolve in his chest. Outside, police sirens began to wail, approaching the church as the reality of the situation became undeniable. Some guests murmured about the scandal, others about the courage of the girl who had dared to expose the lies. She stood near the entrance, trembling slightly but holding her ground. Every eye that had once judged her now looked at her with respect, even admiration. The bride's panic grew. She clutched at the empty air, her plan unraveling faster than she could grasp. The veneer of elegance, the illusion of control, vanished in seconds. Her carefully constructed life of privilege and deceit had been stripped bare in front of the world. Whispers became chatter, chatter became urgency, and urgency became chaos. People turned toward the exit, some to escape the uncomfortable truth, others to process the shock of having believed in a lie for so long. The groom's eyes softened as they found the girl. There was no anger here, only recognition, gratitude, and an understanding that her courage had saved him from a life built on betrayal. Why do the masks we wear so often fall at the worst possible moment? She risked everything and changed everything, he thought quietly, taking a steady breath as the room settled into stunned silence. In that moment, the church was no longer just a place for vows or ceremonies. It had become a witness to truth, courage, and the unmasking of deception. And those who had tried to hide behind appearances learned an undeniable lesson. No amount of wealth, influence, or power could shield a lie from being exposed. The cool air outside the church carried a quiet calm, a sharp contrast to the chaos that had erupted moments before inside. The girl's hands were still trembling, but her chest heaved with the steady rhythm of truth finally spoken. The groom stepped closer, no guards, no advisors, just him. Curiosity and concern etching his face. Why did you do it?" he asked softly, as if afraid the answer might shatter what little calm remained. The girl swallowed, looking down at her worn shoes, then back at him. Her voice was steady, though faintly tinged with the exhaustion of years spent surviving alone. "I live on the streets," she began. "No one cares about people like me. Not really. I overheard her plan to use you to take everything. I recorded it because your charity once helped me even when I had nothing. You gave me hope, and I couldn't just stay silent." The groom's eyes softened. He had always believed that wealth could solve most problems. But here was proof that courage often comes from those who have the least. You risked everything?" he whispered, incredulous. "She risked her life for honesty, and maybe saved me from a mistake," he thought, his heart pounding in a way money could never buy. The girl nodded. "I knew no one would believe me if I just yelled or begged inside. I had to record it, show proof, and hope that someone listened." Her eyes glistened under the soft afternoon light, the dust and grime of her life now shining with something purer, determination. He studied her face, the lines of hunger, of sleepless nights, of a life spent walking through shadows. Yet in her eyes, he saw resilience stronger than anything he had ever known. "All this you did for someone you barely knew?" he asked, voice tinged with awe. "Yes," she said simply. "I could have ignored it. I could have stayed invisible. But when lies threaten someone's life, can anyone truly stay silent?" He reached out, almost instinctively, offering her a hand. She hesitated, then took it. For the first time in years, the girl felt the warmth of safety, the possibility of trust. The noise of the world, the scandal, the whispers, the cameras, faded behind them. For a moment, there was nothing but truth, honesty, and the fragile beginnings of hope. Two lives, so different in circumstance, yet united by courage and choice, stood in quiet understanding. Sometimes, the smallest voice carries the heaviest truth, the groom realized, a deep sense of gratitude and respect settling over him. The city lights glimmered faintly in the distance as they walked toward the sleek, modern car waiting outside the church. For the first time in years, the girl felt a strange, unfamiliar sensation, hope. Every step seemed lighter, though the weight of the streets still lingered in her muscles, in her bones. The millionaire looked at her with quiet understanding. "You've done something brave today," he said, "and no one should ever have to survive alone like that. I want to help, not just tonight, not just for a moment, but for your life ahead." She blinked, unaccustomed to kindness without expectation, without judgment. You mean really?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," he replied firmly. "A home, food, education, safety, all of it. No conditions. You don't have to fear the world anymore." Her mind raced. Years of hunger, cold nights, and harsh words had taught her that promises were often empty. Could someone really care this much? For me? She wondered, her heart swelling with cautious optimism. They arrived at a beautiful home, warm lights spilling into the evening air. Every corner spoke of comfort and security. Furniture that invited rest, walls that promised protection, windows that opened to possibilities she had only dreamed of. She hesitated at the threshold, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You can stay," he said softly. "Learn, grow, become who you were meant to be, not who life forced you to be." Tears pricked her eyes, but they were not tears of sadness. They were the kind that follow release, the kind that say, "I survived. I am seen. I am worthy. For the first time, I don't have to be afraid," she thought, letting herself imagine mornings without hunger, nights without fear, and a life where her courage could finally bloom instead of merely surviving. The millionaire smiled gently, seeing more than just the girl. He saw strength, resilience, and the spark of someone who had refused to be invisible. "This is your beginning," he said. "Not mine, not anyone else's, yours." She stepped inside, the door closing behind her like a quiet promise. Outside, the world still moved, full of chaos and noise. Inside, a new life had already begun. Every step she took in that house was a step away from the darkness, toward light she had almost forgotten existed. Sometimes, hope arrives not as a grand miracle, but as someone willing to see your worth, she realized, letting herself finally breathe. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows of a bright, bustling community center. Children's laughter echoed off the walls, bouncing from colorful murals to neatly arranged desks. The girl who once stood alone at a wedding entrance, trembling under the weight of the world, now moved with purpose. Her stride was confident, her eyes warm, and her smile carried the quiet strength of someone who had survived everything and then chosen to give back. She knelt beside a small boy, helping him tie his shoelaces. "It's okay," she said softly. "Take your time. You're learning, and that's what matters." Around her, other children followed her example, inspired not just by her words, but by the life she had lived and the courage she carried with her. "I never thought I'd be here," she thought, watching them, "and yet here I am, stronger than I ever imagined." The story of her past was no longer hidden. She had grown, studied, and transformed the pain of survival into a mission, to ensure that no child would feel invisible or helpless. Every scholarship she established, every home she helped build, every meal she provided for a hungry child was a testament to her journey from fear to hope. Outside the center, reporters and volunteers came and went, but inside, the focus remained on the children. The ones she knew could change the world if someone simply believed in them. She guided them with patience, encouraging them to tell their stories, to hold their heads high, and to trust that courage often begins with a single, small step. One boy looked up at her, eyes wide. "Miss, how did you survive?" he asked. She smiled gently. "I had to, and I had people who believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. That's what matters." The camera of her mind flicked back to that fateful day. The wedding, the recording, the chaos, the truth revealed. That single moment of bravery had shifted her life forever. It had taught her that courage could be louder than fear, and honesty more powerful than silence. Could one small voice truly change everything? She reflected. Yes, because sometimes the world only needs one person to stand up. As the children ran to play outside, she followed, watching them with a sense of peace and fulfillment. The streets, the hunger, the cold nights, all of it now belonged to the past. What remained was her mission, her hope, and her promise to lift others just as she had been lifted. She paused at the doorway, feeling the wind on her face, and whispered to herself, "Every truth told, every act of courage, it matters."